We are indeed a country at war. At the battleground of this chaos, the massive shadow of unemployment looms over our nation. Almost 4 out of 10 of our citizens are unemployed. How did we get here? How did we, in fact, ensure that our citizens have lost hope? Democrats, I want to say we have a leadership crisis. Our country is burning and our people feel they've got nothing left to lose because that government that sits there cannot lead them. If we can't agree on policy, it cannot implement whatever is agreed upon. It cannot hold anyone accountable. There's simply no action. 5 years ago, when I came as a member of parliament, the figure of unemployment was at 8 million. Today, it is sitting at over 10 million and it is climbing to 11 to 12. We are going to keep going. We need to act. Fellow South Africans, I want to say this. What is happening in Gauteng is also an indicator of the pain of our economy. And we cannot set up more commissions, more talk shops, more road shows. What we need now is action. And so I want to put here before you, let's put an economic recovery plan. The first thing that we must do is focus on nothing else but economic growth. The focus must make sure that South Africa becomes an attractive place for investment and an easier place to become an employer. We must ensure that SOEs that are bleeding our fiscus dry begin to be dealt with. We must deliberately split Eskom into 2 entities, one for distribution and equally one for generation. Democrats, we can sit here and debate SAA all we want. It's about time that we start selling it off, get an equity partner so that we can take that money and give it to the police in Gauteng so we fight against criminals. And then ultimately, Democrats, we must have a government-wide spending review in order to prioritize future spending. I want to say, furthermore, Democrats and fellow South Africans, when we sit here, this lot are putting out policies that are simply not helpful to our economy. Policies like the NHI, EWC, national minimum wage, nationalization of the Reserve Bank, and worst of all, now you want to loot the pensions of poor, ordinary working South Africans. These policies are going to repel investment. You can't talk investment and then keep these policies on the go. We need to look out and make sure more people are able to enter the labor market and ensure that we don't cripple our national budget. And we must agree, Democrats, or BEE has only brought in a few rather than the many. It has failed to be more inclusive, and therefore I would urge it must be removed, replaced with a redress plan that creates an inclusive growth and actually ensures that there's real broad-based participation for citizens in this country. And therefore, Democrats, I want to table here today that we must create a jobs and justice fund. We must have a fund in our country that citizens can contribute to that can ensure that it redresses and reverses the apartheid most damaging legacies, the destruction of wealth transfer. And no one knows the best way to achieve this is to give people more title, more access to shareholding so that they can transfer wealth to the next generation. And therefore we celebrate the victory today in court in the Mr. Rakase case that shows that the DA does not mean we need to amend the constitution, we need to give title to citizens. Honorable members, we know very clearly that many young people are unemployed, but it's not just because they are unemployed, they are unemployable, because the education that we give them, particularly in rural communities, is poor. It's time that we set up a national civilian service where young people can intern for a year, learn skills. The state needs to be able to pay them so that they can contribute to our economy. Furthermore, South Africans, when it comes to declaring South Africa open for business, the first thing we must do is relax the labor legislation to create an environment in which business can create jobs. We must pass the DA's jobs bill, which contains a wide variety of incentives for foreign companies and domestic companies to invest in South Africa. We need to look at a tax incentive for our big job-creating sectors like manufacturing, tourism, mining, and financial services. And then I would urge, especially in small businesses, we must pay them on time so that we don't hamper our small businesses through red tape. But fellow members, many of these stems can be implemented right away. It's a crisis. It needs leadership from all of us. The difficulty is that it's impossible for this side of the house to give leadership because they can't agree on anything. There's a Treasury document that has been supported, we support, but they can't even agree on it. It's by no means a comprehensive strategy for growth, but it's got practical ways that we can kickstart our economy, and we need to start doing it now and rolling back unemployment. We support the document, but we need to put it into action. Honorable members, a plan simply is not good enough. We've been through this history. It was NDP, it was GEAR, and then it was the New Growth Path. This government has not been short on ideas. What it's been short on is action. We must act. We must have the courage to make tough choices, and we know what those choices are. You can't, Democrats, say to people, you are going to increase salaries by 11% a year, but you are also going to cut public sector wage spending. That's confusion. You can't speak of tightening the belt while you keep SAA in the skies. You can't keep of overhauling education, but equally so you want to look after SATU because they must vote for the president at the next Congress. You can't keep about cleaning government, but you fail to arrest the people who in fact have stolen the people's money and put them in jail. Instead, you promote them to become diplomats. You can't build a capable state if you are not willing to abandon cadre deployment that has been practiced by this House. So I'm asking, regardless of what policy your side puts on the table, you can't agree, but the policies we put on our side, we are already implementing in government, our governments are delivering, and we are bringing the change that we need. So fellow South Africans, no one can debate that we are in a crisis. We need to lead. We need to work together. And I'm here to call upon this House to say, let's do at least 3 things. Let's reform our politics. You don't have to come here and vote, and if there's an idea that comes from this side, you reject it. We must work together to reform our politics. We must furthermore reform our economy. Our economy needs to be more inclusive, and it needs to bring on more people. But lastly, this is the pain I feel. What apartheid said to citizens in this country is that families could not stay together. It split families. We will discuss mining in a moment, but let's reform our societies. Let's restore the credibility of the home so that we don't have to sit outside in a society that's filled with gender-based violence, where our citizens can be protected. I want to ask President Ramaphosa to be here on Tuesday when we discuss the scourge of gender-based violence. He must come and respond. He must come and address citizens. And therefore, more than anything, when we come up with an economic plan, we must agree together, we must work together, and we must have the courage to make tough decisions. I call on all of you here today to say time for talk is over. Enough is enough. We must act now, and we must put the citizen first. Thank you very much.